What up, guys? What up? What up? What up? What's going on? Renee, what's up? Um, what a great day, actually. I know I came on here talking about yesterday, like yesterday was pretty much a bullshit day. Today actually wasn't that bad. Came on live pretty much, we saw the little red action we had earlier on. We saw a little bit of an intraday divergence. We got the little dead cat bounce we wanted pretty much. I think that was around just before lunchtime or so. We started to see a little bit of a divergence, tick starting to make a little bit of consecutive higher lows, and bait and SPY just started to base out before we got a little bit of a reversal, and then we just started to trend down for the rest of the day before we got that little end of day. I want to say pump, micro pump, however you want to call it. It was a nice little move into the end of the day to give basically a technical relief going into tomorrow. So I'm going to be looking pretty much to see on the back end of Microsoft and Google here. We already see Microsoft had an insane day. I'm not going to lie, I did not expect that kind of move ahead of the earnings. I think at one point it was down about close to $8 to $9 on the day. That was pretty crazy. I think the reason why it's more so down right now, I'm pretty sure that they beat on the top line and the bottom line in terms of their earnings. I was gonna take a look. So apparently, yeah, their EPS was 223 versus 230, but their revenue wasn't missed. So that's probably why we see it's kind of getting some exaggerated movement to the downside here, although it's already been bleeding out for most of the day. So the other thing to pretty much offset that though was Google. I think Google had pretty nice earnings, which they almost never disappoint. So Google kind of offsetting the little debacle that Microsoft is looking like right now. But I will get into SPY in just a quick second, just to remind you guys of some things. Lobo, get out of here with that parrot, my guy. But of course, as always, kind of just giving you guys a reminder and myself. We do have FOMC statement coming out tomorrow. Everything pretty much points to basically having a 75 basis point rate hike tomorrow. That's pretty much what all indications are right now. So that's going to be one thing that's pretty much on the agenda tomorrow. I don't think there's anything else necessarily news related other than getting that FOMC statement and then also getting the briefing in which Powell usually talks about 30 minutes after. If I remember exactly, we have the FOMC minutes exactly at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then Powell is supposed to talk at 2:30 p.m. So that's pretty much what's on the agenda for tomorrow. Other than that, we still do have some earnings that are pretty much on deck as well. I believe we have Boeing that's on schedule for tomorrow. So that's going to be pretty much a big highlight here come tomorrow morning. So that could be another catalyst in which it kind of offsets what SPY is going to particularly do for tomorrow. I kind of want to check one quick thing as I just kind of ramble on there for a quick second as I am checking something right now. Yeah, we got Boeing and we have Meta actually reporting tomorrow afternoon. So Boeing is going to likely be in the morning. Meta is going to be in the afternoon. Another one that's going to be key tomorrow, something to pretty much keep in the back of your mind. We do have Qualcomm reporting earnings tomorrow afternoon as well. So that's going to be something you're going to want to keep an eye on in terms of the semi sector. That could definitely impact a lot of things here tomorrow. So that's another thing that again you want to keep an eye on. If you're going to end up swinging semi names tomorrow night for an overnight swing, keep in mind Qualcomm earnings could affect your price action. All right. So that's pretty much just a highlight. Now, the caveat to what I just pretty much understood right now is that even though it seems like right now Google is kind of offsetting the price action on Microsoft, Boeing's going to be a pretty nice caveat to that, in which it's going to have something to say whether we end up going north or we end up going south here come tomorrow morning. So that's something to very much keep an eye on tomorrow morning. So the price action that we're relatively getting right now could drastically change my morning. So that's just something you want to keep in the back of your mind. All right, so I'm not getting caught up too much. What I will say though is that I pretty much see a little bit more downside here by morning, and then we should get a pretty strong reversal, I think, going into FOMC minutes. All right, Lobo, I will definitely get to your snap ticker in just a second. Just quick analysis on SPY, and then I'll get to that one real quick for you. But like I mentioned, I expect a little bit more downside. Kind of looking here at the hourly, you see the little downtrend break that we've had. That basically dates back to July 19th, as we made that nice little head and shoulders that everyone had. I think on Twitter, on social media in general, everyone had this head and shoulders playing out. I'm actually very surprised that this is one of those, you know, ordinary times that in which everyone sees the same exact pattern and it actually plays out. Very shocking to say the least. So, but I'm glad it ended up playing out like that. Hopefully everyone kind of caught that when I said no intraday bounce. You had your little relief bounce, but you basically had everything pointing to the downside. Volt pointing to the downside. Tick went right back on into the negative area, right below your zero tick line. So everything pointed to us pretty much continuing to bleed out. And then of course you look at the three-headed monsters, in which I usually always look at. Apple didn't show any kind of strength, relative strength today, and you had Tesla and Microsoft kind of just leading the way, with semis also not giving you any sign of reversal at all. And then if you guys remember, I came on live yesterday afternoon and I pretty much talked about all the pretty much put flow that came through for Nvidia yesterday afternoon. We had about 4 or 5 level twos that came through for Nvidia puts. So that kind of led the way for semis to also drag the entire market down with us. So I think that's pretty much just gives you a sum up of what your leading indicators were today. Looking at Tesla, looking at Microsoft, at the semis just going along with it. And I can also point to pretty much an onslaught of other tech names, the Meta, the Netflix, all just pretty much going along with it. All right. So we'll look to see. I'm going to actually see how price action is once we get to the 100-day moving average tomorrow, the 100-day SMA here on this downtrend retest, I'm calling it. That's roughly right around that 388 mark to be flat, 388.02. So I'm expecting a little bit downside here come tomorrow morning. Could it be in the fact that Boeing kind of aids the market into a quote unquote gap down tomorrow morning, and then we see a strong recovery? That could likely be pretty much the case playing into this type of price action I'm looking at. But I would expect pretty much a strong reversal, whether we get down to about 387 half, even wicking below that 100-day SMA. We likely end up seeing a strong reversal off of 387 half to 387 low, and then I would expect a nice reversal, which would possibly lead right into FOMC minutes, and then also kind of give way to get an earnings run up for Amazon and Apple earnings, which are still ahead. All right. So that's pretty much just my upside downside. Otherwise, we end up losing 387 half tomorrow. And then what's going to be really pretty here to look at is going to be this nice little fat gap fill that you have sitting right here, which I was trying to get highlighted. You have a nice little gap fill sitting right below. So that's not going to be pretty particularly. Gap fill is basically under 385.39. So I personally believe if we end up losing 387 tomorrow, we're likely looking at gap fill here at under 385.39. And that's about a nair close enough to a $3 gap fill that we're looking at. And that's going to likely end up being on the back end of FOMC minutes, in which we end up continuing to flush under 387. All right. Otherwise, we hold 387. I think that's pretty much your reversal spot that you're looking at. Just pretty much giving you the black and white of that. All right. Now Lobo, let me take a look at your snap real quick. How did that actually do? I know that since the earnings, that thing literally just flushed out completely. Probably have to go out to the weekly, honestly, to pretty much give you a better idea. I remember last time I actually looked at this earnings, and that was pretty much hovering right around that 12 to low $12 mark. I remember saying this was going to $10. Now we're actually pretty much under $10. Now where do we particularly look to see for the support? I'm looking right around 9.19 is what I'm looking at. And that is particularly where you end up having a nice little cup action. You had a strong reversal, nice little cup you could say, and you made a strong breakout here. So I'm looking to basically retest, which would basically be your breakout from February of 2019 is the level that I'm watching for. So if you get this down, specifically, it would be 9.05 is where it ended up retesting. That's basically what I'll be looking at. And you wanted to look at shop, not snap. That's hilarious. All right, but I guess this is a bonus. But 9.05, that's what you're looking at for snap. Maybe those of you that are pretty much curious. And actually, believe it or not, this actually may be a pretty nice one in terms of shares. And I'm sure at some point with down the road here, I would not be surprised if we see some kind of buyout in terms of snap getting some kind of buyout or some kind of merger or some sort going on, because there's no way that this ends up staying down at $9. I highly doubt this will be the case. Now, of course, it'll have to be some kind of merger or buyout or some sort for Snap that ends up taking this a nice reversal on this, because I highly doubt this stays down at this $9 range. But that's just kind of like an instinct to me. Let's take a look at Shop. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sig pretty much was talking about Snap. I believe he took some snap calls at the end of the day. If I believe he's looking for kind of a little bit of recovery, I want to say. If I kind of get down to this chart, in which this is not a pretty chart, I'm not gonna say. This is literally not a pretty chart. What I was basically looking at before was you had a nice little descending channel action. At one point, basically dating back to the 22nd of last week, we were basically retesting what I was be is the downtrend break. But then we ended up getting that news that basically just slaughtered us and put us right back into the middle of this channel. So the big thing is that we ended up defending this 37 high, which is roughly right around 30.78. We basically defended the halfway mark of this descending channel. That was a positive sign to me. I think that's why we had a nice snapback that you could see. And that's why I also believe that SIG had pretty much good intentions here of basically getting shop calls, if I'm not mistaken. And so I do expect pretty much a nice little reversal off of snap here. I will look to basically reclaim here. If we can end up reclaiming over 30, 33, over 32 half, 32 half would be that spot that I would particularly say. You reclaim over 32 half, I can see this starting to stretch back up towards 34. Now, I'm hard pressed to say that you get this over 34, much more than that. I think 34 is likely going to be a resistance for quite some time. And that also lines up with that SMA that's basically at 33.881. So if you can get this over 33 half, I think that stretches it up towards 34. But if I'm being honest with you, Alobo, I think your upside is kind of limited to that 34 mark for the time being, that is. Now, if you could particularly end up getting this to pop higher than that, and maybe you end up testing the downtrend resistance of, if you, on the back end of Amazon's earnings, that could probably be the only way I see in which you get further continuation above that $34 level. But that's when it gets risky because now you're talking about trying to play sympathy to Amazon's earnings. And that's where I'm like, I would I tell you to hold shop calls or shop shares through earnings, Amazon earnings, that would I wouldn't be that guy. All right. But if you're holding shares, I don't think it's really much more of a problem to pretty much hold that through Amazon's earnings if you're looking for a bigger, more explosive move. But me personally, I don't think this gets higher than $34 right for the time being, that is, for maybe the next couple of days. Or if I want to say a better term, to the end of the week. So maybe we could see a better continuation on the back end of Amazon's earnings going into next week, possibly. But I'm tough go to say that you get it even higher than that. All right. Took some far dated puts. Not sure Amazon beats again. I I can't really say that I'm against you with that because Amazon, I think right now with all the inflation stuff going on, I'm sure the expenses are pretty much piling up on Amazon, and I would not be surprised to see if at some point we start to hear slowdowns with Amazon hiring. So it's either going to be the Amazon hiring or the expenses that's pretty much piling up for Amazon. That's likely going to be the downfall if that does play out to be the way. All right. That's pretty much what I would look at that. I don't blame you for getting pretty much the shop puts here. What I would say though is maybe be prepared to maybe average down if you have the buying power to do so because like I said, it could stretch to 34. If it does stretch to 34, I think that's maybe the ideal spot that you maybe look to pretty much average down into your position. All right. So that's pretty much just my hindsight of what I'm looking at for that one. Kind of going down, maybe looking down the list here. I do have pretty much AMD. That's pretty high on my watch list here as well. I saw some 90 calls going out for AMD. It's going to be something that's going to probably continue to stay on my watch list for a little bit here. So we'll see how this one ends up playing out. We already saw Nvidia kind of bleed out here today. So I'm going to look to see if we have a little bit of support here on. Why am I looking at Amazon's chart? I'm talking and I'm looking at Amazon's chart. That's hilarious. So I'm gonna look to pretty much see if we get some pretty nice a nice reversal here on AMD off of tomorrow morning's little red action. I'm hoping we get a little bit more of a bleed out come tomorrow morning on AMD. So I'm looking for a little bit more downside. The zone that I'm particularly looking at to pretty much get in on AMD calls here will be right around this 83 half to 83 low is particularly what I'm looking at to pick up some AMD calls here. So I'm hoping we get about what would that be about a $2 downside here, $2.5 downside come tomorrow morning on AMD, in which I can hopefully buy at market open, and then we could see a strong reversal into pretty much through the day and the rest of the week. So I'm gonna look to pick up this one. That may end up playing out to be an earnings run up as well, potentially for the semis as they pretty much start to bleed out now. Maybe we see a late week semi run up for next week in terms of Nvidia and AMD that's still left. But of course, we also do have a lot of semi catalysts, you want to say, with Qualcomm earnings, with NXPI. I believe that one's already happened. And then you also have Intel earnings coming up as well. So you do have to keep in mind pretty much the catalyst. So I would pretty much take a starter position. But I like the setup here. You could also be making an inverted head and shoulders action. If you actually look and I pretty much highlight it, you see a nice little left shoulder action going on right here. And then you have the steep head that pretty much gave us the low dating back to July 5th at that bottom of 71 half. And then what I'm looking for is to basically put in a bottom on this right shoulder at this 83 low. And then we pretty much take this up to the neckline right into earnings at that $90 to $91 level. And we'll see at that point in time at that 91 level, do we end up getting a continuation, or I want to say a breakout rather, of this inverted head and shoulders, or does this end up failing the pattern and it ends up breaking down on the back end of earnings? So that's pretty much kind of just walking through the mindset of what I'm looking at. But keyword was a starter position for a swing. I still haven't decided whether I want to get this week expiration or next week expiration. I'm still kind of deciding that. Just depends how long I pretty much plan to hold. So that's going to be something I probably decide. Maybe I hold 1 to 2 contracts for next week expiration, and then I probably get a few weeklies. Maybe that'd be the case. So that's just something that I'm looking for. But key level to basically hold in mind here is basically 83. You want to see this hold 83. As long as it holds 83, we should see a strong reversal back to the upside here, and that's particularly what I'm aiming for. All right. Outside of that one, we do have Meta. That's pretty much also has earnings coming up as well. We see the nice little bounce off of Meta. I actually personally think that we see some further downside on Meta though. That could particularly be in the sense that we end up seeing something a little similar to kind of what Microsoft just pulled today, in which my downtrend support, if you see this nice little channel action from when we last basically had this little gap down, I'm basically looking for this to come down to 147 here, particularly if this does get brutal on the back end of earnings. Otherwise, we could find some meaningful support here right around this 155 level. And that's what I think might play out into Meta's earnings coming in tomorrow. All right. So that's something I'm going to keep on watch as well for Meta. Outside of that, I don't think there's too much else that's kind of on my watch list. Tesla, we know Tesla's pretty much always on the watch list if you want to say so. It's still basically defending that breakout level. You want to say where she gapped up above the 765. So it's a good sign that she held the 765 mark. She held her SMA here at this 773 half. So if she continues to hold 773 half here tomorrow, we could see a strong reversal on this one here tomorrow, and we'll look to see if she basically makes a stronger move to the upside over 793. All right. Why is the Lobo saying die meta die? I guess you're not a fan of meta. All right, I'm gonna just take it like that. That's cool. I don't know what meta did to you, but it's okay. No hard feelings. It's all right. But again, so let's see if she ends up holding. Again, key levels on Tesla here. 773 half. You'll look to see if she holds here tomorrow. If she can't particularly hold or snap back that level per se, because obviously the body of the candle holding is more important than the wick down, in which you can stretch down towards what is it, 766 to test the gap fill. You want to see the body snap and hold above that 773 half and then break out. To me personally, I think that if we're gonna end up getting this back over 800, she's gonna need to claim over 793, and then we can start to make that strong move over 800, which is specifically 802 resistance, if I remember correctly. All right, so that's pretty much just key levels to pretty much keep in mind with Tesla. But no hindsight, I'm kind of expecting a strong reversal, and she's gonna likely hold the 773 going into tomorrow. All right. Jesse T triple Q. Let's take a peep. Let's see if I kind of clear the chart. Let's see what we're looking at with T triple Q. So we kind of held a little bit of a strong level here, I think personally, and which we're still holding above, which is right around this 27 flat. I want to say 26.99 if we want to get specific, but 27 flat for right now is actually held. If you end up losing that 26.99, your next level support here is right around this 26.04. If you can't defend that, there is a small gap that you're looking at below 25.81. So particularly, I will look to pretty much see if this ends up defending, what I would say it's gonna have to defend 26.04, in which that's gonna give us pretty much a reversal here for the broader market. And I'm in the direction of which this ends up defending 2604, in which we can likely see if she maybe gets close enough to stretch us down towards that 2604 tomorrow morning, as I'm likely expecting a little bit of a bloody open, but and I expect pretty much a strong snapback here tomorrow. So 2604, that's pretty much the line in the sand, I think, for T triple Q. In terms of basically getting that breakout, in which we're going to see some nice broader market action going up, then you're basically looking for this. If you're looking for this to pretty much be bearish, you basically want to make sure that this remains under 27.89 here. If she ends up breaking north of 27.89, then it's likely not going to be particularly pretty. All right, so I'm assuming that you're bearish on it. Possibly. I don't know, yes or no. But if you're a bear, you want it under 27.89. If you are pretty much looking for the breakdown, or if you're holding, key, watching for a key support level, 26.04 is that level that you're particularly watching. All right. So that's pretty much what I would say about T triple Q. Outside of that, again, there's a lot of earnings this week. Don't try to get caught up on pretty much getting caught up in a lot of these juiced up premiums. With Amazon still left, Apple still left, I think that's pretty much what you want to avoid. Other than that, I think after tomorrow, with Microsoft being premium, should be relatively clear. You're a bull, so you're a bull on T triple Q. So then, if you're a bull on T triple Q, in which case you want it to go up, I'm assuming, you basically want to see it end up breaking north to 27.89, Jesse. All right. But like I said, you should relatively see quite a few names actually get some relief in terms of juiced up premiums. So with Microsoft and Google pretty much alleviating us, and then Boeing tomorrow morning, those could see some solid continuations off of their earnings. So I would look for those names pretty much earlier on in the morning, see if there's any kind of continuation on that, depending on market price action, of course. We'll need to see what the levels are on the back end of some analyst ratings come tomorrow morning, see how that affects price action before market open. But then we'll be able to pretty much call those out on live, give you guys a little bit of some levels to pretty much keep an eye on. But those actually make for some good continuation plays with Google, Microsoft, and Boeing. And especially with Google premiums likely to be even lower tomorrow. Granted, the fact that usually you wait about the first 15 to 30 minutes for those premiums to pretty much drop after their earnings. I would likely end up looking at that in terms of the premium actually being relatively cheaper on Google now than what we've historically saw before the stock split. All right. So I think that's pretty much just highlights of things to keep an eye on. Again, FOMC minutes. Those of you that are not aware, just a quick reminder, yourself and myself, usually the first reaction is the wrong reaction. It just all depends pretty much in the sense that if we end up seeing that first reaction pretty much lasts for a majority of the afternoon tomorrow, or do we end up seeing a quick spike and maybe a quick dump? So it all depends pretty much how long that first reaction is going to last, is what I want to make sense out of. All right. Do we end up seeing a quick, wrong direction in a matter of a few minutes, or do we see this pretty much give us a strong directional move into the close, and then we see the market digest it overnight, and that's when we get the reversal? All right. But other than that, I will pretty much conclude right there. We'll leave it as is. So hopefully you guys hadn't made bank today. But other than that, I will see you guys on live tomorrow morning. You guys have a great evening and later, guys.